50,000 people used to live here. Now it's a ghost town.
Time is a truly fascinating and curious concept. Sometimes it seems to fly by in an instant, and other times it feels as though it completely freezes a perfect moment. Close your eyes. I want us to travel together. It's Friday night, you're 15 or 16 years old, it's cold outside, probably raining, but in your room, the glow from the tube TV lights up your face. There are no Instagram notifications, no work emails. Your phone is a brick that only works for sending SMS. And it probably has a little stick on the side so you can pull it out and use the stylus to tap on the screen. Your only real responsibility in life is to do the workbook and to keep a positive kill/death ratio. That sound of the console fan struggling to breathe wasn't really noise. It was the engine of our spaceship. Turning on the console wasn't just a 5-minute thing to check out the skin store. It was a sacred ritual. It was disconnecting from the real world to connect with the only world that mattered. Picking up the headset you'd left charging the night before, just so you could put it on and talk to your friends. Today, we're gonna do an autopsy of our nostalgia. We're not just gonna talk about why the game was better than the ones today. We're gonna understand why we were happier at that time. Because, let's be honest, it's clear that something broke along the way. And no, it wasn't just the game. But to understand what we lost, first we have to remember what glory sounded like.
7, 15, 1, 2, 19, 7, 25, 6, 13, 6, 7.
Have you noticed that games nowadays are silent? Are they more forgettable? If I were to ask you about an iconic sound from one of the latest Call of Duty games, you probably wouldn't know how to answer, or you wouldn't be able to send me a link to a characteristic sound from that COD. But believe me, if I play you this, you'll instantly know what I'm talking about. Music in Call of Duty wasn't just background noise, it was the conductor of the orchestra of your emotions. Back in the golden age of Call of Duty, when Activision ended up hiring Hans Zimmer, the guy who composed music for The Dark Knight and Gladiator, when he started working on the Rangers theme or the soundtrack for the older Call of Duty games, the result was fantastic. It was perfect, and it was exactly what that game needed, so that when you started a match, you felt like you were the star of a Hollywood movie. You'd hear this and honestly feel like the war was happening all around you. In the menus, man, the menus. For example, in Black Ops 1, you weren't just in a list. You were completely tied to a chair, and that was the main menu. The menu told you a story. In Black Ops 2, you had this futuristic vibe. Just by hearing that song, you knew the war had changed. You knew we were in a modern era. Even the sound of the weapons, that sound when you finish reloading the intervention, or the metallic sound of the ACR. Today, the guns sound realistic. Totally agree. They'll go out with their recording equipment to a shooting range, and from there, they'll get the sounds that end up being used for the guns. Others will be created artificially, but they're missing something. They're missing punch, they're missing that soul or that special quality that makes you say, with the sound of this weapon, I immediately know. I have the vivid image of the gun I'm firing in my mind. And it's that before every sound ended up creating these memories too. They had this personality. Nowadays, it's just a sound effect that could be real, or it could be downloaded from a library, or maybe the sound technician or engineer was messing around with plugins and managed to create this sound. But the atmosphere and the sound were the gift wrapping. They were the cherry on top. What really defined whether you stayed up playing until 4 in the morning wasn't the music, it was the setting. And here's the question I want to ask you. Why do we remember every corner of Terminal or Ride, but forget today's maps just a week after they've come out? This is where the 3-lane theory comes in, and it's that old maps like Raid and High Rise were perfect maps, especially the maps from Call of Duty Black Ops 2. You knew exactly where the enemy could come from. You knew there was a kind of flow to the match, that if you spawned here, you could go this way or that way, but you more or less knew where the enemies would end up coming from. If you ended up getting killed, you knew it was because you peeked out too much or simply because you missed your shots. The maps were memorable. They had their own identity. Terminal, an airport. High Rise, an office under construction in the clouds. Nuketown, a nuclear test neighborhood. Each map told a little story, transported you to a different location, and ended up making you feel something. If you compare that to today's maps, they don't have any kind of story. They don't evoke any feeling. And above all, they're designed more so that bad players can play there and maybe get a few kills. Ask yourself why nowadays every map they add to a current Call of Duty is a map from an old Call of Duty. Because the truth is, they just don't know how to make good Call of Duty maps anymore. That's how it is. Plus, I also feel like back then, everything was less professionalized. It was all more about having fun. People didn't care so much about stats, KD, or having to complete a challenge. I think it's a combination of both things. The maps used to be better, and on top of that, people back then weren't as likely to camp just to end up getting a stat or completing a challenge. Back then, the most important moment was when you got a kill streak. And that would hit, and at that point, sure, you might end up camping a bit just to get that same kill streak. And speaking of campers and camping, that brings us to this human factor inside a game. Because even if the map was perfect, it didn't matter if you were alone. What happened to the human voice in video games? What happened to voice chat?
Oh, Dizzle! 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 Oh my God!
Yes,
Pushing
Coach.
hard. Look how many times you see my name because y'all pushing so hard. Look. Barbecue chicken. See that? Let's keep pushing.
Oh, baby, a triple! Oh, yeah! And that was my triple collateral on free-for-all.
Oh my God! You just did a fucking quad! You just did a fucking quad! Oh my God!
As you guys can see, look, he killed me with a stun. A stun, he can't use a stun. Yeah, guys, look. Yeah, look, guys, look. Hey, disconnected. Yeah, guys. Thanks for watching, guys.
The pregame lobby. That place, those 60 seconds or so between matches, that was literally the Wild West. Nowadays, even Elon Musk would get banned from there. Back then, there was no such thing as dissolving lobbies. If you ran into a worthy opponent in a match, or someone who got under your skin, or someone you annoyed, because every time you killed them, you could hear them complain, you'd end up sticking around in that game. These rivalries would form and sometimes last for hours, even whole nights.
Friendly MCLA, shove a dildo up your cunt.
Bro, don't bring them into this, dude. Dude, you want me to bring your mom into this? Cause your mama is so fat. Mom
Dude, your mom gives such a good
free
blowjob.
episode when I was watching TV.
And here, a lot of you might say this was something toxic, right? And I agree. It was toxic. It was a kind of toxicity, but a strangely healthy one. People said all kinds of crazy things. Every mom of anyone who played old school Call of Duty got mentioned, but it toughened you up. It taught you to ignore the noise and focus on winning. It made you focus, like, hey, this guy's been humiliating me, now I'm gonna crush him. This was great, and it was fantastic. But the main thing, the most important part of the whole voice chat thing, was really the friends you could make in Call of Duty. That digital playground, it was fascinating. You'd get home from school, log in, play your search and destroy. It was you against 2 or 3 people on the other team. Your teammates would try to encourage you so you could pull off the play. And when you finally clutched it, all your friends would congratulate you and you were the hero of the match. And in this regard, even today, we've modernized. And it's not so common anymore to talk to people through the in-game chat. And it's true that back then we also had Skype, but it wasn't so common yet. To end up playing through Skype, people would always use their microphones to talk in-game, and it's a shame because that's something we've lost nowadays. That social validation, that feeling of being the hero of your friend group for 10 seconds because you pulled off the perfect play, was a stronger rush than any level up, any streak, or any unlock you could end up getting in a game. Nowadays, we're all in private Discord groups, the in-game chat is completely dead or censored, and even if you say something, you can get banned from voice chat. What would happen if the original Modern Warfare 2 came out today, with all the crazy stuff people used to say in that voice chat? Would the game be remembered the same when? I don't think they'd let you say even a tenth of what was said in voice chat back then. It's a good time to remember that even the big names ended up getting banned from voice chat for saying wild things in Call of Duty. It's true that, yes, we've gained audio quality, we've gained privacy, that's for sure. We've isolated ourselves in bubbles, and those feelings we had of being able to chat with people have pretty much disappeared. And this community wasn't just limited to the console. When you turned off the Xbox or finished on the PlayStation, the experience kept going somewhere else. A place that created the first internet superstars. And that brings me to the next point. How is it that back then we were happier playing Call of Duty than we are now? And this is the key to everything. In 2010, for example, the motivation to play was simply to have fun. Why? Well, because you were playing a game that was a lot of fun. Your reward for playing this game was winning the match, being able to get the AC-130, getting a nuke, or leveling up to prestige so you could show off that golden icon. That was the fun of Call of Duty at that time. Today, for example, motivation doesn't depend on that. It's true that modern games don't really want you to have fun. They just want you to spend time in the game. With more competition out there, they want to keep you inside their game. How do they end up doing this? Well, it's pretty simple. They get you to complete tasks, whether it's daily challenges, battle passes, weekend events that end just as quickly as they start, creating this need to unlock things, because if you don't, you'll lose them forever. Unlocking camos and all that. We're in a completely different era now, and sadly, this is what's popular these days. This is what people want. Sometimes I even think that Call of Duty can feel like a second job for a lot of people, you know? Because you log in and you feel this anxiety from so many menus, so many unlocks. I have to finish the battle pass. I have to unlock this conversion kit. I have to see if I can level this up in this new leaderboard event. I feel like sometimes this isn't even fun anymore. It's more like this fear of ending up. Missing out on something like, damn, I'm afraid they'll add an event with an awesome camo and I might just miss out on unlocking it. I feel like it's more about that than actually having fun playing the game. And let's talk about something a lot of people might not agree with, which is sometimes the unnecessary complexity they end up adding to the gunsmith. Before, it was literally like, I put on a red dot sight, I put on a suppressor, and boom, we're ready to go at it. Now it's like, I have to adjust the aim speed, I have to sacrifice this ability, I have to watch a 10-minute tutorial to see what the best controller setup is, I have to check which muzzle reduces horizontal recoil by 3%. I think that, in the end, the way Call of Duty is designed today, you spend more time watching videos to configure your weapon, set up your controller, adjust your sensitivity, tweak the graphics, set up everything. I feel like everything is more complicated now, instead of how it used to be, which was just, alright, thanks, I'll set my sensitivity to 8, put on a sight and a suppressor, and let's go. And don't get me wrong, I think the gunsmith is actually pretty interesting. I feel like the gunsmith can end up bringing some positive things to the weapon, but sometimes I feel like I just end up using the same 3 attachments as always. Quick draw, some recoil control, the springs, and not much else. I've been using the same attachments for 2 years, and why do they end up doing this? Well, because in the end, we end up having more layers of complexity in the game so that you spend more time playing and more time looking at things inside the game. For example, you might end up thinking it's the same as what happens with double XP points. Because if you use a double XP token, it starts counting from the moment you activate the double XP token. And in older Call of Duty games, it only counted the time spent in the match. During the match, because they want to create that need in you to find a match quickly, like, I'm losing my double XP, come on, let's see if I can play, come on. They're constantly creating needs for you to stay busy, hooked on the game. I'm not saying it's good or bad, I'm just laying it out for you, okay? Personally, I think double XP tokens should only apply while you're actually in the game. And if on top of all this, we add the big villain that ended up ruining Call of Duty, well, that's it. Game over. What's the big villain of Call of Duty? You know it all too well. 4 letters, and it goes by the name skill-based matchmaking. You've probably already heard everything you need to know about skill-based matchmaking. The truth is, back in Call of Duty's golden age, matchmaking was based on connection, not on skill. It matched you with people who live near you so you wouldn't have lag issues. Sometimes you were made the host and you ended up dominating. Sometimes someone else was the host, you had worse connection, and they dominated you. Completely random, but all things considered, it was pretty fair. We all know that nowadays it doesn't work like that. Now it's all about algorithms, about them monitoring you. Absolutely everything about your account. Not just your points per minute and KD, the number of kills or deaths you get per match, but literally everything. If you use kill streaks, which ones do you use? If you throw equipment, if you use lethals, if you sprint more or less during the match, if you use tactical sprint, everything is planned out to end up matching you with people at your skill level. I'm not going to go on too much about this. We know how this works. In the end, the lack of fair matchmaking ends up making the game a completely different experience. You just have to look, for example, at how Black Ops 7 was during the beta and how Black Ops 7 is in the final game. The main goal of Call of Duty right now is to keep casual players engaged and try to sell them the Battle Pass, see if they end up buying a black cell, see if they end up buying this skin. And I also get it, trying to empathize a bit with Activision. I understand it. Because there are more bad players in the game than people who actually play to have fun like we used to. We've lost that sense of progression. But on the other hand, I feel like this really ends up ruining the Call of Duty experience. I feel like it doesn't matter anymore if you actually get better. It doesn't matter if you try to dominate a match, because in the previous match, you just got dominated yourself. I feel like we no longer have that drive to progress, to get better at the game. And I think this also ends up killing the satisfaction you get when you really want to get better with a weapon, or at quickscoping, or whatever it is. And at this point, I look back, and we really see the ruins of what used to be an empire in the video game industry. And I ask myself, what do we have left now, besides the memories we made in these co-ods?
Then what the fuck is stopping us from just throwing ourselves off a bridge and giving up and saying, yeah, the planet is dying. The government hates us. The animals are leaving. The aliens aren't contacting us. We might be alone. It just might be you and me. But that's okay, because do you really need anyone else?
Maybe you're still playing. Maybe you try to find that spark by playing Ranked, or playing Rebirth Island, or playing Warzone. But sometimes I turn on my old Xbox, and all I want to do is look at my friends list to see certain friends who haven't logged into the game in over 300 days. And sometimes I even wonder, whatever happened to someone on my friends list who I used to play with every day, and now I know nothing about? Obviously, that person must have grown up. Are they okay? Maybe that person has kids now? Maybe they have a mortgage? Maybe they have real worries beyond just getting a Harrier. That squad you conquered the world with in 2012, pulling off insane clips in Black Ops 2, dissolved into the silence of adult life. And it's a shame to think that one day you finished playing with your daily friend, the one you played with every day, enjoying a game together, and that day, when you turned off the console, it was going to be the last time you'd ever play with that friend. I don't want to dwell on it too much because otherwise I'll end up overthinking it, but I don't know, I wonder about it, and in a way it hurts, you know? It hurts because I know those days when you were just a little kid, when you didn't have any responsibilities. I know those days aren't ever coming back. I don't think any 100 gigabyte update, any remake of some old classic map, I don't think any of that is ever gonna bring back the feeling of being 16, coming home from school, dropping your backpack and spending 6, 7, 8 hours playing because you didn't have any responsibilities and you didn't care about anything at all. And the thing is, that golden era was what it was, not just because we were young and ended up enjoying it, but because the games they made back then were just perfect. We were lucky enough to live through the golden age of Call of Duty. Lucky enough to grow up playing on Raid, on Nooktown, on Terminal, or Wastelands, or, I don't know, on Summit. We were the generation of the intervention. We were the generation of discovering that if you aimed from one end to the other on high-rise, you could see the enemies in the other spawn. And honestly, I feel like we were lucky to have lived through that era. And if it ever happened to you that you had a friend you always ended up teaming up with, sharing a lobby, or hours of gameplay, send them this video just to say, hey, I saw this video and it made me think of you. I remembered when we used to play Call of Duty together as kids, and I want you to know that you made me really happy back then. And if not, well, I want to thank you for being on my team for these 20 minutes, for letting me call in a VSA, and for making the most of it. I'm glad that in this match we just played, you managed to get a streak you never had before. And I'll see you soon, right back here on the channel.